All right. My apologies, folks. I know that our stream got disconnected, but you know what? We still got Kevin on the line. Kevin, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still
All
here.
right. Thank you for holding, man. We got our stream got disconnected just as we got started, man. You know what that is? That was the
Okay.
man. That was the man trying to stop our connection, man. As soon as it got good there, all of a sudden the show goes down. So, but thank you for being a good sport about it. And so, the people missed that last part as you were talking about. You look at this as a ministry. I had asked, what's different? Is it different for you now, like your posture being out in the community now as an entrepreneur, as a leader of this awesome thing, as opposed to a member of the media?
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, being on the media, I get to see this stuff all of the time with, whether it's people here in Cincinnati or in other places who are trying to do ventures similar to ours, and it is a different space than being on that side of it and covering it, and it's humbling, it's exciting, it's scary, it's all of those different things, and me and my other two partners, Kevin L. Aldridge, who's my cousin, and Kelvin Moss. We've been talking over the past, year as we've been putting this thing together about how it was going to change the posture for each of us because you know we we go from just being whatever our individual professions were before this to now we're employers. We're giving people jobs, whether that's the players or the people who are associated with our organization, our coaches. We're an employer now, and that's a big responsibility. And we want to be a positive force, in the community, in the city of Cincinnati. We want to work with kids. We want to be in neighborhoods. We want to, play a role to whatever degree that we can in trying to help Cincinnati, with some of its challenges. And so there's a lot of responsibility that goes on along with that community responsibility, and we believe in that. Like I said, this is not just a business for us. This is not just about basketball. We see this as an extension of ministry, and in the sincerest form. In addition to a journalist and this, I'm a pastor at heart, and so, I have a feeling for people, and so that was a big part of what we talked about when we did this. This just couldn't be a business that we just couldn't come in and just take. That we needed to be a part of this. How can we partner with other businesses, black businesses, so that we don't just eat, but we can help other people eat. We talked about that, last night. So that's a great thing to be able to think that we can come in and do those sorts of things, that we can not only lift ourselves up, but maybe bring some other people along for the ride as well. That's an exciting and energizing thing for us. So, if there's one thing I think that we want people to know, that yeah, we want this thing to be successful. We want to make money as a business venture. That's why we got into it. But the idea is not to just get the financial success so that we can keep it all for ourselves. I believe very much in scripture where God blesses us, and he'll bless other people to be in a position to bless us, but he doesn't do that so that we can keep all those blessings for ourselves. He does it so we can be a blessing to the world. So that's that's how we want to try to operate the Ohio Kings. And so, man, it's a different posture, but I think we're up for the challenge.
Well, I mean, I had to put it out there though, but I mean, are you going to remain with the Inquirer? Are you going to remain with the journalism thing, or do you see sometime in the near future you stepping away from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too early to talk about that. I mean, the truth is we're just getting this thing off the ground. The Inquirer still pays the bills, man. So that's, so to speak. So I don't think we're anywhere near the point, for me talking about anything like that. But I mean, my philosophy has always been, Nathan, is, you always got to have a plan B, C, and D, and people will look at me and they'll say, man, you're involved in a lot of things. That's because I firmly believe, I mean, everybody knows that the newspaper industry is a volatile industry. Things change, companies have been doing different things, looking at new strategies, downsizing things of that nature. And even when I ran a newsroom, I used to tell my employees when they would get worried about, downsizing, I would say, hey, look, there's nothing that we can do to control the corporate forces and the decisions that they make. There are two things you can do. You can work hard and try to make yourself the most valuable employee. So if it does come to cut time, you're not on the list. The other thing that you can do is make sure you got a plan B, lines in the water, that you position yourself so that if the worst does happen, you can weather the storm. And so that's always been my philosophy. So I look at this right now as another, one of my plan Bs. But if it becomes that, it would be great. If the Ohio Kings became a thing that, I could pour myself into full time, and that becomes a career. That's the hope. But I think right now, we're in the early stages. We're trying to build this thing, and so we'll see where it goes.
Speaking with Kevin Aldridge, one of the members, one of the owners of a new ABA, and that's semi-pro basketball team, Ohio Kings. So tell us the story. How did it all come together, man? Share what you like to share. I mean, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, so basically, it started out with the other two partners. So I came in a little bit later in the process. So my cousin Kevin L. Aldridge and Kelvin Moss, they about 2 years ago, um, we've all sort of sat around over the years. We've known each other for a long time and just kind of talked about, like, hey man, how cool would it be, to be like a GM for the Lakers, or the Sixers, or a team president, and be running the show and making moves, and deciding players, and that sort of thing for an NBA team. And just kind of stuff that you do when you just be sitting around kicking and talking and dreaming. And couple of years ago, Kelvin and Kevin found out about the ABA, right? And Kevin started doing his research, looking into it. The two of them went and had a meeting with the president and CEO of the league. Had a personal sit down with the gentleman, and they came out of that meeting intrigued, and they liked what they heard from the commissioner and saw the potential of possibly bringing a team to the city of Cincinnati. And but they recognized that it was going to take more than the two of them to get it done. So my cousin and I, we work together on a lot of different projects, and we do a lot of different things. And so he came to me and said, "Hey, look, we've got this idea. We want to know what you think, and would you be willing to invest with us, along with us, in this project?" And so I looked at it, and my cousin and I, we had the kind of relationship where neither one of us bring the other some BS. You know what I'm saying? So I know if he came to me, he sincerely thought in his heart that this was a legitimate thing that could work. And so I sat and listened. They presented the idea to me, and I caught the vision immediately. Knowing what I know about Cincinnati, its basketball history, and the fact that that's a void that the city has right now, and has been hungry for, to try to make it work. I immediately caught the vision and said, "Count me in. I'm on board." So we marshaled up what resources that we had, came to the table, purchased the rights to bring a team to Cincinnati from the league, and we began the process. We started to put together the framework, and the very first meeting and conversation that we had is what do we want this team to be? You know, who do we want to be? What kind of players do we want? What kind of owners do we want to be? Really just kind of trying to figure out what this thing was going to look like and what we wanted to be. And then we got to work. The first thing we wanted to do was try to find a first class venue to host our games in. Um, we went to a gentleman named Sherwin Anderson. I don't know if you know Sherwin, but he does a lot of training of athletes, AAU stuff in Cincinnati. He was a 4-year player at Xavier some years ago, a bit of a legend basketball player back at his high school in New York. So Sherwin was one of the first people that we worked with or went to, because we knew, Sherwin had a lot of basketball connections, and he had previously been involved with the Cincinnati Stuff basketball team that tried to make a run at it in Cincinnati some years back. And so we went to Sherwin and we said, okay, why didn't the Cincinnati Stuff work here in Cincinnati? and because we didn't want to repeat the same mistakes that other entrepreneurs had made in trying to bring professional basketball to Cincinnati. We wanted to avoid that. And one of the first things that Sherwin talked to us about was venue, size of the venue. So the first thing we said was, we're not going to try to do this thing where we're going to try to play at a big venue like US Bank Arena. One of the things that we saw initially and observed initially with FC when they made their run, like they weren't trying to go to Paul Brown Stadium or super large, venues. They had their games at the University of Cincinnati, which created a real intimate setting that they could pack out, and that place looked packed and it looked energized and it looked like an event and a place to be. And so we said that is the framework that we want to follow. So we're gonna look for a first class venue, but one that is not so big that if we draw 2,000-3,000 people to the game, that it still look like you got 20 or 30 in a 16,000-17,000 seat venue. So venue size and the quality of the venue was important. So we started to look around, and then Sherwin mentioned to us that he had been doing some things with Cincinnati State, and that they had a gym over there that was going unused because they had gotten rid of their sports program. And so we were like, cool. Sherman arranged for us to get over there and see the gym. It's a great gym. It's a great floor. It met all the specifications that we needed for the league. Great locker room, great weight room facilities, just everything that was going completely unused. And so we were like, this is going to be the spot for us. And so, we proceeded to try to get a meeting with Dr. Monica Posey. We put a presentation together. We were able to get a seat at the table with her and their facilities manager. We made our presentation to them, and to Dr. Posey's credit, she caught the vision immediately. Because again, just Nathan, our thing is partnership, and we were talking to Cincinnati State about, hey, look, we don't want this to just be a facility rental. How can we make this a true partnership in its form, so that Cincinnati State can benefit as much from us being here beyond a monetary contract? And so we talked about all the ways that could work, how we could interact with students, get students involved. And so the conversations really began to get rolling there, and they progressed for several months. And so this is where we are going to play our games. But I have to say right now, planning, because we have a deadline of October 1st to sign the contract. We're still getting some of the contract language together, but it's going to happen. We're going to sign the contract, but just for accuracy's sake, I have to say we're still planning to play our games there because we haven't signed yet. But that's going to happen. And so we're excited about that. That at every step we've come to, people have caught our vision. They've seen it when we've presented it to them. And so that was the first step, getting that first class venue. And then, we had to get the team together. So we started holding tryouts. We would advertise in the different streams that players follow, and, using Sherwin's connections. And my cousin and Kelvin are both coaches, so they have a lot of connections in the basketball community. So we began advertising, and we held tryouts in Columbus, Dayton, and Cincinnati, and had a bunch of players come, tried them out. Sherwin, with his experience as a trainer, helped us with the workouts in terms of working out the players and running the tryouts. And at the end of it, we came out with about 15 guys that we thought were not only good basketball players, but would be really good representatives of the team and of the community.
What are their ages,
one
Kevin?
of the comments that I'm sorry.
What are the ages of the players?
Yeah, the ages of the players. I think the oldest player we have might be like 25, 26 years old. The rest of them are, early 20s. So these are guys that are like fresh out of college, maybe 1 or 2 years removed from college, who
right.
have been trying to keep their run alive, in their basketball careers, whether that's to get overseas, whether it's get to the G League, and obviously every player's dream is to make it to the NBA. But these players, realize where they're at and where they're trying to get to. So for many of them, getting overseas is the ideal thing. And so actually, I think our oldest player, the one who is 25 or 26, he's got a couple of years experience playing overseas and is trying to get back over there.
Okay.
So that's the thing. We want to provide that platform.
So here you are providing an
Um,
opportunity for these players. Like I said, man, I used to play at this place called the Friars Club here in Cincinnati, and we've been talking about maybe doing a reunion because there was some of these brothers,
mhm.
man, that back in the day, I'm like, damn, this dude can play in the NBA. They were amazing talents, but there's only so many slots, and then sometimes things happen. What you're doing is providing what could be a platform, like you said, for these guys to get their name back out there. What are some of the guys you think you project to be like, the starters or the stars or some guys that really stand out to you on the team?
Yeah, I don't want to at this point, Nathan. I don't want to say that because
Okay. I
for
understand.
two reasons. For two reasons. One, we're still trying to, as I mentioned to you, we got 15 guys right now, and we're still trying to. We're gonna get down to a 12-man roster basically. So essentially, we still have some
Okay.
roster decisions to make.
Right.
Between now and our first game. And two, I want to leave that to our coach Lannis Timmons, who's the coach of our team.
Yeah.
And so we're not trying to beat Jerry Jones owners, man. We hired Lannis Timmons to be our coach and to do his job, and we want him to be able to do that. We want him to make the decisions about who he feels are the best players,
Hmm.
who deserve to be on the team, and who deserve to be on starter or to be the starters. And so I don't want to, respectfully, I don't want to get into that.
Right.
I mean, I definitely have some thoughts on,
Yeah, I understand. I definitely
players
understand.
that I've seen, but we don't want to, we really want to empower him for it to be his team, and those are one of the things we talked about with him very early on. So I don't want to overstep that bound.
Oh yeah, everybody knows Lannis Timmons. Shout out to Lannis. Absolutely. Um, you just said something that triggers a question. Like, what kind of owner do you envision yourself being? Like, is there any like major league team owner you're like, you know what, that's the kind of, if I was running the show, I'm gonna be like that. Like, what do you project your style to be?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I don't know that I had thought about it that deep. Like, who do I want to emulate? I mean, there are plenty of people that I draw influences from. But I mean, the thing that's been successful for me throughout life, man, is just trying to be myself and trying to be the best person that I want to be. So I would say from the owner's perspective, like here are the things that I value. One, like I said, I value people. I want to be somebody who deals with people straight up with integrity, whether that's people we do business with or whether that's the players, to always try to make decisions and do things that are in the best interest of, the Ohio Kings, but also take into account having compassion for people and the community. And, just to try to be, a force for good, man. I mean, that's really, those are really the things that I try to live by, and the way that we want to, we want to do business effectively and efficiently. Again, we're out front now because we have to be. So like right now, we are the faces of the Ohio Kings because we have to be. It's our vision. We have to be able to communicate that to folks in the community. But I think eventually all of us would love for this thing to kind of become where we can just kind of, fade to the background and be some of those owners that are just, sitting in the stands watching the game and observing, and all of the attention is on our players and our coaches, as opposed to us. We want to be a winning organization. So winning is something that we've talked about, because, Cincinnati doesn't have a great,
Right.
a
Track
record
record.
in a lot of his major sports right now. And,
Hmm.
we want to be that team that Cincinnati can cheer for and be proud of. I mean, I don't want to be one of those owners that, is standing up at the mic making excuses for why we're not winning. I mean, we want to put winning basketball on the court and give people something to be proud of. So, and that's something we talked about to the players. We told them we're going to do our best to give them the best platform that we can for them to exercise their skills and to get recognized, but they got to come through for us. I mean, we talked to them about that they got to play their best basketball because people in Cincinnati are going to expect that. We're going to expect that. So that's just those are just my thoughts on ownership.
So the payers are played, right? So I mean, this is like they're drawing an income from this, which to me makes it
yeah,
it
they
turns
are.
it up.
And it's not it's not a huge income. I don't want anybody to think that our players are getting like NBA level salaries or anything like that. Somebody else asked me about that. I said, yes, our players are paid, but it's not, at this point they're not getting super huge salaries. They do have a base pay that they'll get per game, and then many of their contracts are incentive laden, and so those incentives, may be based on performance on the court, how the team performs, from a revenue standpoint. So they do have an opportunity to make a pretty good chunk of change. But I don't want anybody walking away from this thinking like our players are pulling down, NBA caliber salaries. It's not like that, at least not yet.
I hope controversy for your future. I do. I hope that in 10 years we're having a conversation similar to the conversation about the Ohio Kings that we had about FC Cincinnati, about where the new stadium's going up, stepping up to the new league. I mean, is that the future of what this could be? I know I'm jumping way ahead here.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been very careful, Nathan, to be like, hey, this is the lane that we're in right now. We're going to work this lane as much as we possibly can. Now, that would be a good problem to have, which is why we talked about starting out with the smaller venue to begin with. It's better to have to look for a place to grow because the demand is high than to look for a place to scale back because you can't meet the demand. And so our hope obviously is, for this thing to grow bigger and to see what the possibilities for us are down the road, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I can tell you this: you asked me like what it's like being on this side versus being on the media side. I think one thing that has helped me and that has helped us is that being in the media, people have asked me, like if you were working at the paper, if you had to start your own business, what would you do? Well, it's basketball now, but the answer I used to give people was I would start a media consulting company because I see just how terribly organizations, individuals, politicians manage their public messages and their responses to the media and to the public and all of those different things. And so I think, I would hope that one of the advantages that we would have if it got to that place is just seeing, from my opinion, how poorly some things, were handled or have been handled, that I think we would have a different messaging. I think our mind frame, in terms of how we would want to handle that and sort of deal with the community on these sorts of things, would be different. And the other thing is that I would hope that we would have built up credibility with the community on this level in terms of our engagement and the things that we're doing, that if it did come to that point, people would understand that we're not just somebody who's coming in to take or to try to, get taxpayer dollars to enrich ourselves, but that all along the way we have been a part of the community. We've been giving back to the community so that if it did come to that, people would already say, hey, these guys have a legitimate stake in Cincinnati. They've been in the community. They've got the stakes and the rep, and we don't have a problem with what they're doing. Now, again, that may be naive. That's a long way down the road, but in my mind and in my heart, that's how I see it.
Well, Kevin, listen, with you on the team, I know the messaging is going to be sharp. I can already tell, man. The messaging is going to be on point. So I'm curious. So I'm familiar with you. I can kind of hear, some of your skills. What are the skills that your other two partners bring to the table? I only ask, just for the education of the audience. Folks might want to comprise their own teams, start their own endeavors. But so what are the skills that your other team members or founders bring to the table?
Yeah, so the two other partners, they have a rich basketball history. They've been coaches. Both Kelvin and Kevin have been coaches on the high school level. My cousin has played internationally overseas with athletes in action, so he knows uh, what the grind is like for these guys. He knows what it's like to be going out to multiple tryouts, trying to get on teams, trying to keep your career alive. So he's lived it. So he's got a degree of experience that he can go directly to the players and speak their language and talk to them about what this process is like, and to encourage them, but also give them some tough love along the way. So they bring a tremendous amount of basketball experience, acumen to the table that's going to help us on that side. My cousin Kevin is also an entrepreneur. He's been living it for about the last decade. He started his own nonprofit business called Kingdom Vision Outreach, which they do youth mentoring through sports. So he runs youth sports leagues. He does camps, basketball camps, volleyball. So he's been intimately involved in training, developing, creating leagues for young people, mostly in the Butler County, Middletown area. And he's been making a living off of that for 10 years. So he's got, he knows how to put a successful business together, and make it work. So he has lived the entrepreneurial spirit for the past 10 years. He left a well-paying job, in the college education sector, and left that job to strike out on his own to start this business because he believed in it, and had a dream. And man, he's been making it work for 10 years. So he also brings that to the table. He knows what it's like to try to live that entrepreneur life, and so he's been coaching and educating us on that. So each of us in our own way bring a piece of the puzzle, right? Which is why I think we were all sort of smart enough in the beginning that this is not something one person could do alone. That each of us had a skill set that we wanted to bring to the table that could help make this thing go. And even with us, it still takes more people. I mean, man, we've been fortunate to have some people come on board and work with us who bring their own set of skills with them to help us make this thing work. So it's way more than a one man operation. It's way more than a 3-man operation, to make this thing work. And we just want to thank everybody who supported us and who caught the vision, and man, who's really been on board with this thing from day one. And we hope more people get on board. That Cincinnati will embrace this, because we think it can be a special thing if they do.
Yeah, so do I, man. I wish the best for you. When's the tip off? When's the first game?
So we are actually, our first game is an away game. We're going to go to Columbus on December 1st, and then we come back to Cincinnati State on December 7th, and we got like a 3 or 4 game home stretch after that. So the entire month, the rest of the month of December, and I think the first Saturday in January, are all going to be home games. So we got like 4 straight home games after the first one on the road. So people have plenty of opportunities to come check us out in that first month of the season. And most of our games are on Saturdays. Our tip-offs are usually somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We got a few late primetime games, 7 or 8 o'clock. But we really try to keep the games early enough in the afternoon, because we really want to try to make this a family-friendly type thing. We want families to come out. We want people to bring their kids. We're working with a friend of ours who's a barber. He's agreed to kind of come on board. Man, we're going to be doing free haircuts for the kids before and during the game. His wife does. She runs an art studio for kids, and so she's going to come and help us develop a kids zone at the game where kids can come and do different kinds of artwork, whether that's finger painting, crayon drawing, woodworking, string art. all of it's going to be surrounding basketball and the Ohio Kings. So the kids will get to come in, do some artwork, take it home with them. So we really spent a lot of time trying to be creative with the fan experience, do some things that give back to the community. I mean, a game ticket is $10, Nathan. I was telling the group last night, you get a $10 Ohio Kings ticket. Kids 5 and under get in free. It's $5 if you're 12 to if you're above 5 up to the age 12. It's $5 for a ticket. But I'm like, hey, look, even if you spend $15 for you and your kid to get into Ohio Kings basketball game, you're going to get to see some good basketball. Your kid's going to get a haircut. You're going to pay more than $15 if you take your kid. I don't know, maybe you do. I know I pay more than $15 for my haircut, but you get a haircut, you get a good basketball game. Your kid gets exposure to a good art program. Not to mention the other things that we'll have going on at the game to entertain the fans. It's just an experience that you can't beat for the price at the end of the day, and so particularly with the extras that we're offering. So we really wanted to create an environment with a low ticket price that nobody feels shut out. You go to some of these sporting events, the tickets are so high you can't afford to bring your kids to the game. Man, I was 22 years old before I went to my first professional sporting event because my parents had 4 kids, 4 sons, and you couldn't get 4 kids. I mean, it was tough for a black family to get 4 kids into the Bengals game or to the Reds game with concession stands, because the kids are going to want concessions. So that just would have been way more than my parents could have afforded to do, and so we didn't want to have that with the Ohio Kings. We wanted it accessible to everybody who wanted to come and be a part of the party, and so that's why we try to keep the ticket prices reasonable.
Well, Kevin, it sounds great, man. I'm coming to the game. I'm bringing the fam. We're going to get some jerseys. We're going to hang out. And I think it's great, man. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'll catch up with you soon. Wait, hold on 1 second here. Hold on. Okay. Mike Davis wants to know, what league are you in now, and how many home games, and what are some of the other teams in the league?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So the league we play in is called the ABA. So it's the American Basketball Association. So I tell people all the time, yeah, it's that same ABA that Dr. J used to play in, where he was driving down the lane, palming that red, white, and blue basketball, dunking, same league. So those who are fans of professional basketball and know the history that a few decades back, the ABA and the NBA merged into one league. And so for a long time, there was no ABA. But back in 1999, a gentleman by the name of Joe Newman, who was an advertising executive and CEO of his own firm, bought the rights to the name and to the league back in 1999, and he formed the new ABA. And the ABA is the largest professional basketball sports organization in the world. It has 150 teams in the United States and overseas. And Joe has really built this league into a um, a model for young entrepreneurs, particularly minorities, to be able to get into ownership in basketball in different markets. And so he prides himself on inclusion. In fact, 75% of the owners in the ABA are either women or minorities. And
Is that
so
right?
that's a big deal. Yeah, that's a big deal for the ABA. So Joe's I mean he's a Caucasian gentleman, so who's committed to inclusion in that way and helping um, you know minorities and women become business owners and basketball team owners, and he prides himself in that. In fact, he had a hand in the organization of the Indiana Black Expo. He was one of the original brains behind putting that event together. So inclusion has been a part of this guy's DNA for a long time.
Mm.
And so that's the league that we play in. And I tell people all the time, yes, we're going to be playing with the red, white, blue basketball. That's a signature of the league, is that all the teams play with that ball. So we will be playing with that. But the teams that we play, so Joe is very good at giving advice to the owners, especially new owners. Their teams all over the country, but to try to keep travel expenses down, especially for first year teams, like he doesn't want first year teams going bankrupt in the first year because they're trying to do too much. And so he encourages first year teams to play all of their games within the regional division. So one of the best teams in the ABA is like they're a team called the Jacksonville Giants. I'd encourage people to go online and look up their website. They're sort of like the model for the ABA. Like they won the ABA championship like 6 times, maybe like 4 out of the past 5 years. I mean, they're dominant. They have great organization and some of the best players in the league. And eventually, we want to get to a point where we can go to Jacksonville or have Jacksonville come up here and we can play them because that they're sort of our litmus test from an organizational standpoint and from a player standpoint because we want to be the best. So obviously, we want to compete against the best. But in our first year, it looks like if we're going to play them, we're going to have to make the ABA playoffs this year if we want to get invited to Jacksonville this season. But our schedule, we're going to be playing mostly regional. Akron has a team. Columbus has a team. Cleveland